Alrighty, so I am going to show you some of the work that I've been doing on the single stat. And the single stat is something that seems simple on the surface, but then when you scratch into it, it makes life a little bit frustrating. So there are a few dimensions that are important to consider with a stat. So you have the title of the stat, which is right here, or the metric. You have the metric value itself, and then there are some like surrounding bits of information or functionality that helps people understand the context of the stat a little bit more. So for example, you might have an icon to give a little bit more detail around the title. You may have some guidance to provide just when you hover over that. When the title is throughput, for example, people might not know what throughput is, so you want some sort of tooltip to give you more detail on the metric itself, so you don't need to write MRs per month per engineer or whatever it is. You can sort of hide that behind the tooltip. And then you also want to give status on the metric sometimes. So whether that's like good, bad, or whether that's warning, critical, success, whatever it may be, and whether there's like a trend at all. So whether it's trended over the last week or the last month or whatever it is. So these are a few of the dimensions that need to be considered when having this single stat. Originally, I just wanted to implement the metric and the title and these the icon and the guidance just in one. But based on some implementation stuff, there's already some stuff within the product that requires this status and trend in there. So we basically need to implement it all at once if we want to sort of accommodate what's in the product so far. So I did some iterations with Jeremy, and this is what we started with, and then we realized that we needed to incorporate the stuff into the product, the trend lines and the status. So I've been working on, oh, why is my screen sharing paused? Resume share. Can I just do this? Oh, it's so annoying. Why can't I just share my secondary screen? I will do this. I'll click on the Figma file, just view it in here. Okay, so this is what Jeremy and I have been working on, and title, value, unit, and this is what I've been trying to work on, is include the status and the trend within this design, within this component. So this would be status only, this would be trend only, this would be status and trend, and then we'd want trend only, and you don't need to have a color or anything if it's just a trend. So I've done a few variations where we sort of just have circles, and then it gives you color and icon to represent success versus warning versus danger. This is more success, warning, danger with the shape as well, but it leads to a fatter badge. And then this is using severity iconography, which we have already in the product. But the severity iconography sort of has a few downsides. So what I'm looking at now is how can we include the status and trend dimensions or indicators on the component in as minimal way as possible, but accessible at the same time. So I'll pause there and ask for your feedback.
For me, on the A version, the little badge on the right feels out of place. It doesn't feel well aligned. So I think that total container like B and C looks nicer. And I think out of those, B looks nicer still with the icon versus the symbol.
Mhm.
I think for like efficiency of information, like the small icon for status only might not be helpful, because then you have to know what those symbols mean. And
Exactly.
in iteration A, you only have yes, maybe, and no. And I don't know what a hexagonal X means, like on B. And less so for C. So that'd be my only complaint with that. So I think status only icon without some sort of information might not be helpful on first use.
There'd be a tooltip with it as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
what you could do with the tooltip is if you hover over it, it could say status status warning, and then it could provide you with the thresholds or limits or bounds of why it's that way. So for example, if something is bounds of 0 to minus 50% gives you critical, you could have that within the tooltip. If you see what I mean.
So how important is it for the user to know the threshold?
It depends on the context. Like it's a general component. So some use cases will be very, like, you'll probably want to add a threshold or something to start out with, but the threshold isn't all that important right now. That's just like an idea what you could have within the tooltip.
Well, I'd be curious, and the information within the tooltip then would be flexible because it would, display your threshold, correct?
Yeah, flexible to a point. So it would have to include the data of what this status icon means. So it'd be something like success dash whatever message afterwards, or it could just be success warning error or whatever it may be.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I particularly like A. I like how the status is a bit smaller. To me, it's very conflicting with B and C as to, I don't know, perhaps what the main thing to look at. Like the badges seem very large to me, whereas I think that's what I like about A, is they're a bit more discreet, perhaps.
Yeah, like visual weight isn't virgin. Like the most important thing there is maybe the trend, but you don't want to take away from the visual weight of the metric as well. And here the trend is just like boom, and the metric is sort of smaller because it's just grayscale.
Mm-hmm.
Could there be another way to present that visually? Like have the container wrapped in a green box instead? I mean, it's kind of ugly, but just throwing something out in left field. Does it have to be a pill badge or something? Or has there been other iterations of executing that visual somehow?
I chose the badge because that's an existing component that we have, and I didn't want to create anything new.
Yeah.
And I'd be hesitant to add a completely colored element, because that was one of the challenges that we faced to start out with. Is these things are just, it's so overwhelming. This is the existing component, and we wanted to update it to get rid of the boxes and just make it able to sit in the interface alone.